name is Nicole Moore. I'm Associate Director of International Admissions. So I want to go ahead and first start the process of talking about financial aid at US universities, because obviously that is the reason why we're here. This is the reason why you all wanted to hear from me and hear a little bit more information, because obviously it can be such a huge and scary process when we're talking about financial aid and how do we find this information. But more importantly, it can be very confusing. It can be so confusing to know exactly what all of these terms mean. So kind of throughout this short presentation, as we talk about the financial aid concepts in US admissions, we're going to talk about need-based financial aid, merit-based scholarships. We're going to talk about what a need-aware admissions process looks like. What does a need-blind admissions process looks like? We'll also take a look at what does it mean when an institution says meeting 100% of demonstrated financial aid, or what does it mean when a university does not meet 100% of demonstrated financial aid. We'll talk about what some of those things might be included and what does it mean when somebody says we meet up to 100%? Is it all paid? What does that mean? Because these can be so confusing, I know. And then we'll also talk about what is the cost of attendance, or COA. Those are very important terms to kind of know, and we're going to go over each of these in turn. So I want to make sure that I'm kind of defining various terms, and we kind of talk through this process, and that way it'll be much more clear as you talk to US universities. And also I want to back up for just one quick second and say I want to focus that this presentation is primarily about undergraduate admissions at a US university. So unfortunately, I won't be able to speak directly to scholarships at other universities around the world in other countries. And the graduate school process is a bit different. So we can talk about that briefly if there's interest in questions regarding graduate school admissions, but this is primarily focused on undergraduate admissions and undergraduate scholarships for studying at a university following school, your school education in Kazakhstan. So I just kind of want to clear that up as well. All right. So the real big question, and really when you kind of look at the admissions process, it really comes down to this concept of need-based financial aid versus merit-based scholarships. So as you can probably tell from the name, need-based is focusing on how much does a family need to attend in a university. Merit-based scholarship is only about the merit of the university, of the student. And that idea of merit is, both need-based and merit-based are very much focused on how does a university in the US calculate that need and also the merit. Now, I know that can get very, very complicated, and we're already kind of jumping into very specific situations. So with the need-based focus, what they will do is a university will collect financial documents from a family as they're applying, whether before the admissions process or after the admissions process. And what will happen is that we'll evaluate the documents that will show how much money does your family earn. We'll also look to see how many resources do you have. We'll also look to see what type of resources are available that could be borrowed against. Loans, our education loans are a big part of what the US education looks at. And I know that loans are not always something that can be found as easily abroad. So you have to be very careful with that and think about how one is going to finance your education. But generally what is called with need-based financial aid is the family, will submit their financial documents, their bank statements, statement of assets. They'll look at employment, how much money does a family make? And a financial aid office within the US will come up with called an estimated family contribution, and it's called the EFC. That EFC number is the idea of how much that university feels like your family should be able to pay towards your education. Now, that number is going to be different for every single family. So you might say that your family can pay $10,000 to go to a university. However, when a university looks at your family's finances, they will look at your assets, look at all your ability to pay, they might come up with a different number. They might say that your family can afford 9,000 US dollars to attend. Or they might say that your family can earn or can pay more towards the education. So those are not set numbers. And what you and your family say that they can afford is not what creates the estimated family contribution number. That number is determined by the Office of Financial Aid at each individual US university. And I know that can be very complicated, so I just wanted to kind of point that out there specifically. Now, merit-based scholarships are focused on the student's academic record as defined by that specific university. So for some universities, a merit scholarship might because you had a certain test score. It might be a certain GPA. It might mean that you graduated. It might mean that you seem to be a good student on however they defined good. And those dollars can either because they're giving you a discount on the tuition, or they could also be from outside money that the university is giving you as an applicant. So that number is usually specified on a website, or it's given to every student who applies to the university. Merit scholarships are often a certain amount. So the university may give you 20,000 US dollars, whether your family can afford 10,000 or whether your family can afford $1 million towards your education. That part does not usually matter. It has more to do with a family specific situation and ability to pay. Is more about the family specific or the student's specific merit as defined by the university itself. And so, like I said, the merit-based part of it is very specific to the university itself. It might be because of a test score. It might be because of what Americans call a GPA, or basically your mark sheets or any other type of school exam that they might receive. So that's kind of the difference between need-based financial aid and merit scholarships. And each US university is different. Some US universities will offer need-based financial aid to US students. Some will receive, have merit-based scholarships for both US and international students. Some may not offer any scholarships to international students and only have scholarships to American students. So you really have to kind of double check to see what is available. The other big question that we have here is need aware versus need blind. So this specifically will talk more about need-based financial aid, but it does kind of get into this idea of both need-based and merit-based scholarships. So need aware versus need blind, basically at the very, very basic granular level, the only difference is need aware means that admissions counselors like me know a family's ability to pay during the application and the admissions process. Need blind means that an admissions officer like me will not know a family's ability to pay during the application process. So that is at the very basic level, the only difference. Now, you step back and you ask the question, is that important? Well, yes and no. Now, the real big thing is that you need to combine the two questions from the first slide and the second slide. We need to combine it because if a university offers need-based financial aid and is need aware, then you have a different question of how much financial aid can be offered and in which circumstances will this matter. Now, if a university is need blind, you also have to talk about, is this a merit scholarship or need-based aid? Now, there are a very, very, very small subset of universities within the US that offer need-based financial aid and are also need blind for any students, regardless international or American students, but even fewer who are both need blind and offer financial aid to international students. So I'll put it that way. So there's a very, very small group of universities, only 3, 4, maybe 5 universities in the entire US are both need blind and offer financial aid to international students that meet 100% of demonstrated aid. And we'll talk about that term in a couple of minutes too, just to make sure that people are aware of that. But so this is the very basic piece, is the need aware, is this a factor within the admissions process? Now, a need aware institution will know what a family's ability is to pay during the application process, but if they're offering need-based aid and meet 100% of financial aid, then they will make sure that it's affordable for a student to attend that university. Now, if a university is both need blind and offering you merit scholarships, as we talked about those merit scholarships before, they might admit an applicant to the university regardless of their family's ability to pay. And they might give a scholarship that offers, say, $20,000 and admit that applicant to the university when the university costs, for example, let's say $70,000. Now, if your family can pay $50,000 a year, then that $20,000 helps you and you're able to attend that university. Now, if your family can only pay 10,000 US dollars and that university gives you $20,000 merit scholarship and they are need blind, means that they will offer you $20,000, your family can pay $10,000, and the university costs $70,000. Now you have $30,000 of dollars covered for that university. But as we all know, and we can do math, that $40,000 is not covered. And so that need blind university who offers only merit scholarships, well, they left what's called a gap of 40,000 US dollars that you as the applicant or the applicant would have to find additional money somewhere in order to cover the additional amount. And so that's kind of the difference between need aware and need blind. Now, meeting financial need is different, and need aware kind of comes along with it. So this is where we bring all the different pieces together. So what does 100% of demonstrated financial aid even mean? So basically, what that will mean is that for a university that offers financial aid, which is need-based, remember, it's the idea of how much does your family need to afford that education. So if a family needs 60,000 US dollars to attend a university that costs 70,000, that means that if your application is accepted, that the university will give you $60,000 to attend that university. That's what meeting 100% of demonstrated financial aid means, is that they're going to give you the money that you need to attend that university. So your family can pay $10,000, the university will give you $60,000, and then you're able to attend the university. Now that university who gives you merit scholarship is only going to give you $20,000, or maybe they'll give you $40,000. But that doesn't really matter if your family can only pay $10,000. So whether you have a gap of 10,000 or a gap of 40,000, it might not matter if you have no other way to attend that university. And so demonstrated financial aid means that a university will give you that funding. Now, I want to step back again though and say, well, that's all well and good, but what does 100% of financial aid mean? What does, what does that cover? Because each university might look at this differently. So for some universities, when they say 100%, they meet 100% of aid, of need, they might say, maybe that only includes tuition. Well, where are you going to live? What are you going to eat, right? Those are real questions. You have to ask these questions of how much more money does me and my family need in order to attend that university. So if I'm going to offer somebody financial aid, we want to make sure that our students can afford to attend that university. And so with that, you can also look, does full tuition also, or full financial aid also include tuition, room, and board? Board in the US means meals. So it's your board expenses, your meals at the university, and any other fees that might be included. Now, there is a term that's called cost of attendance. Now, every university is supposed to list what the cost of attending that university is. It should be listed out somewhere on their website. And if it's not, you definitely need to ask the admissions representative for what is called the cost of attendance. And that cost of attendance is more than just the tuition, room, and board, because we all know that there are expenses for studying at a university somewhere in the world. You have to get there, you have to live, you have to have some money to buy a warm jacket, to buy books, to make sure that you're taking care of your health. There's a lot of expenses that go with studying somewhere. Does your family have to cover that, or will financial aid also cover this? So the real question is when you hear somebody say that they meet financial need or that they offer need-based financial aid, the next question you should always ask is, does it include up to full cost of attendance? And so here's what we're talking about when we say the cost of attendance. What is the average cost? You'll often see universities in the US put down what is the average cost that a family has to make. But of course, as we all know with statistics, statistics are challenging things. If half of the students pay the full cost of attending and half of the students have their financial aid completely met and come from families where they have very little resources, well, the average is going to look like a lot of money, but not for a family who needs a lot of money. So for example, that, an average cost for a student, or an average financial aid package could be 55,000 US dollars. Well, that sounds like a lot, but if the cost of attendance is $70,000, well, now you have a huge gap. But that's where statistics get to be a challenge, because the average is not how much that somebody might get. So if everybody gets the average, well, then that's not great. But if a student will get the full cost of attendance, say 74,000 US dollars, and some students pay nothing or get no financial aid, then the average can be in the middle somewhere. So that's just how statistics work. So don't let that fool you. But there are some important things to always think about when you're talking about the cost of attendance. Not only tuition, room, and meals plus fees, but also think of those personal expenses, books, and supplies. Those are all estimated, and those are all factored in to the expenses that a student is expected to have as part of the financial aid. Now, each university determines what that includes. And so many websites will have that information of basically the idea of what that includes and how much that is. But that is also a personal opinion. So some students might spend less, some students might spend more. That is all estimated. So you do have to be a little, that's a little tricky sometimes. Things that people don't always think about, especially students who come to the US, is you have to think about health insurance. who is going to pay for the health insurance? All people in the US must have health insurance, and international students are no different. But the expense can be kind of a lot in the US. So, will your financial aid cover your health insurance? Or is that an extra expense that's not covered? Or is your family expected to pay for that? Also, think about the taxes. Now, this is also a really difficult US-centric concept. All students in the US, or all people in the US, pay income taxes. Now, if you come from a poor family that does not have a lot of money, and the university gives you a lot of money, they give you more than what is required for tuition, room, and meals, many students might find that they actually have to pay a few $1,000s in taxes to the US government. That can be a lot of money for students and families who don't have a lot. So some US universities, like mine, do cover taxes as well with their packages. Now, that can be a very useful process for some students, but some students might not worry about it, especially if you are not getting so much money from the university. If your family can pay a bit more, then taxes will just have to be something that you and your family will have to think about. Maybe. Most of the time, most international students who are from various countries around the world don't have to worry about taxes. But a few students who earn a lot, or get a lot of scholarship money, may have to think about taxes. So that's just something to think about, as well as another piece of information about the cost of attendance. So really, the big questions kind of come with what, kind of put everything together. So you want to know, is the admissions process need aware or need blind? That's an important question. But the more important question that goes with it is, do they meet 100% of financial aid? And is that up to the full cost of attendance? Because the more important piece is that if you get financial aid, you want to know if that money will help you attend the university. And so if an institution is need aware, what that means is that an admissions counselor will know how much your family can afford to pay. But that question really kind of ties more into, are there financial aid resources still available to help this student get to our campus? If the answer is no, you might be offered a place on the wait list, or you might be offered a place, or they might have to, unfortunately, deny your application for admission. Now, what does that tell you? The question is that might not feel good. I can definitely understand that would not feel good. But the piece that I would always want to think about is that if you're applying to a need-based or a need-aware institution, is to know that the admissions counselors, like me, care very deeply about making sure that our students are able to afford all 4 years at their university. And we want to make sure that you're going to be able to be taken care of while you're on campus. And so with that, we also have to be good resource managers of our university's financial aid. So that means that we have a limited amount of financial aid that is available for each student. And if we have 100 students apply and we can only admit 5 students because of financial aid availability, then we can only admit 5 people. And so that is what we want to make sure that those 5 people are going to have 4 years on our campus that is well supported, versus admitting all 100 of the people, but only having 5 people who come from families who are wealthy enough to afford the university. So I know that can be a little confusing, but the bigger questions that you should always look for. So meeting 100% of demonstrated financial aid means that if the university admits you, you will be able to receive enough financial aid to attend the university. Need blind or need aware means that the university will not consider your family's ability to pay. Generally, what they're probably going to be considering is they're going to be considering that all students who apply to the university are going to have financial aid. and they will still only admit a certain number of students. And need-aware university will see if a family needs financial aid or not, and will take that into consideration, but each university does that at its own point of view. So some universities might consider that at the very start of the application process. Some universities might only use that, like ours do, for like the waitlist process. So if there's a student on the wait list who doesn't need very much financial aid, perhaps we might relook at their application. But that is a big maybe because we're still a selective place. So need-based and merit-based and need-blind versus need-aware, these are all very complicated subjects, but I look forward to talking to you in kind of greater depth when we have kind of a few more questions. And I think I might just look at the chat questions here very quickly while I start thinking about my video, just to see. Right. I want to make sure that we have enough time to answer any questions. All right, there we go. All right. Okay, so there's a few questions here. And can you apply for need-based and merit-based at the same time? That is an excellent question. And for the answer is for most universities is yes. For most universities, you can apply for need-based and merit-based scholarships at the same time if the university offers both types of scholarships. Not every university will. Some universities will only offer need-based financial aid, and some universities will offer only merit scholarships. Some universities like mine will offer both, and you can apply for both at the same time. Will SAT scores affect whether we can receive merit scholarship or not? That is up to the university. Some universities will require a certain SAT score, some will not require it. Some will not publish what the cutoffs are. Some scores, some schools will not require any cutoffs. So that is very specific to the university itself. Can need-based, need-aware university give 100% of demonstrated need to an international student? Excellent question. Mine does, not every university does. So you do have to double check that, with the university itself. So for my institution, we are both need-aware, but we also offer need-based aid and meet up to 100% to the cost of attendance for each student who attends. So we cover everything if the family needs it. If the family does not need all the financial aid, then we will not cover those pieces because your family can afford it. Are those expenses from an international student's perspective, because it is a bit more expensive for an international student? Very good point. And that is the reason why at most universities they have, I guess I don't know if it's most universities or not, but at least at ours, we look to see where a student is coming from when we estimate the transportation costs for a student. So if you are an international student, we estimate at a higher level of travel to the campus because we know for most of you, you're coming from a long distance away. So if your family needs that, we will actually pay for that additional transportation costs. If your family does not need it, we will at least have it listed there so your family knows that we're estimating that you're going to have a greater expense coming to the US. Will universities considering your ability to pay? Yes, at a need-based financial aid and a need-aware university will consider your ability to pay as part of the application process because we want to make sure that for any student we admit, you can afford the university comfortably. Some universities will cover some expenses for the visa. Not all of them will. Ours will at Washington and Lee. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share a video here and you all can continue thinking about questions. This will give you a little bit more of a background on Washington and Lee University, and then I can talk about the admissions and the financial aid section and just a few more details after the video.
When I was looking at colleges, I didn't really pay attention to the things I should have paid attention to.
Ask yourself, will I fit in here? And most importantly, is this place gonna push me to grow?
If you come to a place that wants you to be your best, then you're gonna be way ahead of everybody else.
One of the main reasons why I love WNL is because to me it feels like family and it feels like home.
I could sense immediately that this was a great place, a great community, and a very friendly community.
That is a community that you want to be in, one that you're surrounded by people who inspire you, who respect you, and who know and believe in your ability to succeed.
In the classes at Washington and Lee, we have a really close, very tight relationship with our students.
There are many professors in the STEM fields who do great research and can have a one-on-one conversation with me over a cup of coffee about what they're doing.
I've been consistently impressed not only with the quality of teaching, but the level of engagement that my professors have had, not only in my education, but in everyone else's I know.
One of the things that caused me to fall in love with WNL was the honor system.
We trust each other in all walks of life, in the classroom and out, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
You've got this culture of trust with your students. If a student comes to you with a problem, you don't have to ask, you don't have to follow up. You've got that student's word, and it means you can respond with that same level of trust.
The liberal arts education, I think, is the best college education you can get, and I think that WNL is one of the best. Liberal arts is so important because you have sort of a background in almost everything.
Your major is the least important decision you're going to make. What we really want to do is not so much look at our offerings in business administration and accounting and econ as pre-professional, but as ways to kind of broaden the concept of what a liberal arts education needs to be for the 21st century.
So we have a lot of double majors, and what's great is they bring something new to the table in every class they come into.
We require our students to go out to the different schools, the different departments, to take different courses, so their minds are augmented with knowledge in a variety of areas.
In any class that you take, you're going to get sort of coming at it from all different sides. Even if it's a dance class, you're going to get some scientific and mathematical and computer science, which is super cool.
I will be taking some of the stuff I've learned in my geology classes, including the modeling and the quantitative skills, and to apply it to accounting and some accounting policies.
I learned how to connect the science that I chose to study with life at large through the humanities.
When I came in to Washington and Lee my freshman year, I was really struck by the number of opportunities.
The campus is so vibrant, there's so much going on constantly. And I think a lot of that is part of our education, not just within the classroom.
Every single time I wanted to do something here, I've gotten funding for it. I've just had to go up to the right people and be like, I have this really cool opportunity. Can you help me make this happen? And they said, yes, go for it.
This is the Entrepreneurship Center. Students have the ability to interact with real businesses, getting hands-on experience. And so this summer, we're actually starting a company.
We have an opportunity with our television news show that we do twice a week here. Everybody gets a chance to be an anchor, a producer, a writer. When they leave, they can step right into the profession and there will be seamless.
I will actually be an assistant director next year for student consulting. It's a really cool program, and we try to mimic what real management consulting would be like.
The way that the school semesters are set up at Washington and Lee, you have a 12-week semester, 12-week semester, and then a miniature 4-week spring term.
We're taking students abroad, or we're sending students out to domestic sites to do work.
I took the Natural History of Rockbridge County course my freshman spring term, and I think that was the course where I really found that sciences were something that I wanted to keep pursuing.
My sophomore year, I had the opportunity to shadow an orthopedic surgeon, an MD VIP physician, a cardiothoracic surgeon, and then a urologist.
Being able to study abroad, especially my first year on campus, was incredible. I think an opportunity that not very many first-year students get.
We're internationalizing the learning experience as much as we can. With the expanded classroom, we're thinking about all the ways in addition to the traditional ways we learn in the classroom.
For example, since 2011, every summer I've been to Belize. I love working with the students there. Many of these students will use the research that they've collected to do a senior thesis project.
I became really attached to the town. Like, even when I come back into town after leaving for a few weeks, it's just like coming home.
I think it's very important to get involved in the Lexington community.
Every WNL student in their 4 years here will have one, if not many, opportunities to interact with the community.
We're bringing some snacks to the kids. It's an after-school program. It's always a highlight of my day.
The students come to this remarkable place that really nurtures the sense of community and learning that's really at the heart of a WNL education.
One thing that's really cool about WNL is the outing club.
I did the Appalachian Trail pre-orientation trip as a freshman, having never slept outside before. And now I've rafted both the upper and lower Gauley rivers.
We have so many speakers, so many known scholars coming to campus that it's actually difficult to go to all these events on campus.
Between the school, the city of Lexington itself, and just things that students do on their own, there's never a dull moment at all.
I think one of the greatest things about WNL is the personalized college experience you're going to get.
You can show up here freshman year knowing that you don't quite know what path you might take, but at every turn you'll find professors that are eager to help you.
I will definitely miss Washington Lee with every fiber of my being. It's been an amazing place, and it's been a vital part of creating who I am now.
We educate the students to take their place in a global and diverse society, and that's exactly what they're doing. They get out there and they start changing the world in ways that we never could have predicted, never could have anticipated, but we see it every day.
Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate you watching the video. I just always think that it's such a much better way to kind of get a sense of a campus. So I'm going to pop right back into my PowerPoint presentation just for a few minutes, but I want to make sure that I also get to any additional questions you might have. But I also wanted to answer a few questions about Washington and Lee University. And so just kind of a brief little overview. I know we're going to be running short of time here, but I did want to provide a little bit of background to the video. So as you saw in the video, we are located in the beautiful Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, surrounded by mountains. Students get outdoors, they do a lot of outdoor activities, and we're on the east coast of the US, only about 3 hours by car or bus from Washington, DC. So we're kind of in a very small and remote place, but we also are very plugged into the greater outside world as well. We have lots of opportunities for our students to not only enjoy the very safe, small environment around campus, but we do plug you into the wider, greater world as well. And we want our students to be comfortable, but also inspired. And we want this to be your home away from home. So we have a very small campus. 3/4 of our students live on campus. And then students in their last year on campus, since our education is 4 years, in your last year, you're allowed to live off campus. If you decide that you want to live on campus for your last year, that is okay too. But we have, I think, nearly 175 different clubs and student organizations now for students to, take part in while they're on campus. So there's really a lot going on, and we do want students to have those opportunities to be in academic clubs, social clubs, sports. There's a lot of different things that you can get involved with. We do have an international student organization as well, so you can get involved with that too. Some very basic information. You can see there we have very small class sizes. The overall size of the university is only 1,860 students. So we're very small, and you have to be ready to have small one-on-one time with professors. So with an 8-to-1 student to faculty ratio, some of our classes only have 2 or 3 students in them. So there's a lot of one-on-one time with your professor. And we really do feel like this is the right size, the access to the opportunities of campus. You saw in the video how much interaction students are having with their professors. We want students to be doing research. And with that, we provide a lot of opportunities for students to gain more experience and hands-on learning even before they graduate. So we have what's called the Williams Investment Society, where the students actually manage $13 million of the university's endowment as a club project for those students who are interested in business, finance. They actually take a trip up to New York City every year to make sure that they're gaining some experience of the financial markets. We have an IQ center on campus. They have the virtual reality labs, the 3D printers, the electron scanning microscope. They're doing a lot of scientific research on campus. And actually, each year we have over 500 funded research and internship projects every single year for our students to do research both on campus and off of campus. So those are all of just opportunities that are available for our students, to do one-on-one work with a professor, to do independent research. And the nice thing is that with these grants, students can actually get up to $3,600 to help offset the cost of doing those projects. So that way you don't have to ask your family to get these experiences. We want all students to have the opportunity to do this research, to have those internships. And this is what we mean by a liberal arts and sciences university, because we have 75 different programs of study, everything from accounting to women's and gender studies. We have traditional majors like writing, English, history, political science. We have dance, we have theater, we have the arts. But we also, as an institution, we're very unique. We are one of the few top liberal arts and sciences university. We're actually top 10 in the US. We have an AACSB accredited School of Business, the Williams School for Commerce, Economics, and Politics. We also have the oldest journalism program at an American university. We also have an undergraduate program that is very unique. We have a full engineering program on our campus. That combination you almost never find at a top liberal arts and sciences university in the US. But the nice thing is that you only apply to Washington and Lee University. You don't apply to any specific major, any specific program of study. You just apply to Washington and Lee, and then you can study whatever you want to study. You can even study a double major or a double area of study. So there's a lot of flexibility and there's no divisions at the university. So you could study both business and dance, or you could study engineering and writing. There's a lot of flexibility, and we love students who take knowledge from different areas and bring them together, because that is what a liberal arts and sciences university does. It's very important that we take knowledge from different areas, because the big issues in society are not going to be solved from any one particular type of area of study. All right, we'll continue moving on. And also, we have a wonderful office on campus that helps students as they're about to graduate, making sure that you're going to be employed, or helping you find internships after you graduate, or to make sure that you can go to graduate school. We help all students, and we have a huge network of alumni and past graduates of the university around the world. Many of our students go all around the world to make sure that they are successful. But just know that you might not be thinking about it right now, but we'll take care of you once you're going to graduate. And we talk about the application process. We accept the common application. It's one of the most important application for the university. And we look at more than just test scores. So for the application year for this upcoming fall 2021, we are test optional. We do not require the SAT or ACT. Most students will still, all students are still going to have a TOEFL or IELTS. There are no cutoffs, but we are highly selective. So we generally encourage students to have relatively high scores when it comes to their English proficiency. But we're going to look very closely at your high school transcript. We know that in many curriculums around the world, it's very different than the US, but don't worry. I have many resources that I use, and we make sure that we take a good look at whatever curriculum you are using around the world. So, but we're going to look very closely at your performance, but also if you had any choices in the courses that you would take. You might not have any choices in what courses you take, but that's okay. Don't worry. We'll look very closely at your performance and how you did. Like I said, testing is optional this year, so you don't have to take the SAT or ACT, but you're still going to want to take the TOEFL or IELTS. We'll also accept the Duolingo test, online test. We would also accept other interviews such as Initial View or Vericant if you're interested in taking those. We'll also look at your essay, and we have 2 optional essays as well. They're within the common application, they're short answer. I would highly encourage you to do those. We do have an optional essay, which is for the Johnson Scholarship. I can talk about that in just a couple of seconds. We do require 2 teacher recommendations, and most counselors will submit a recommendation as well. If your school does not have a dedicated college counselor, you can also maybe ask a principal or a head teacher or somebody else to kind of give that information. If you need some help, I would also highly encourage you to ask the Fulbright office. They're the Education USA office. They'd be more than happy to help you out to just brainstorm what your options are. You do have the option of doing an interview. If you go to our webpage, we have virtual visit options, and there's actually an option there for an interview. We'll take a look at your extracurricular activities, more about the idea of how you might get involved on our campus. Do you play sports? Do you do Model United Nations? Do you sing? Do you dance? We just want to know what you might get involved with and what might you share with our campus community. And it's also your way to kind of stand out within the admissions process. Some important dates and deadlines to consider. The early decision deadline is coming up very soon with November 1st. January 1st is the deadline for early decision 2 and regular decision students. And then also I'll talk about the Johnson Scholarship, but that has a separate deadline of December 1st. You can apply both early decision or regular decision and still apply for the Johnson Scholarship. So as we were talking about through this whole time period about this concept of financial aid, so Washington and Lee meets 100% of demonstrated family need without loans. So the without loans piece is more geared towards US students. But for international students, just know that anything that a US student might use loans for will be given additional grant money. So just money that you don't have to worry about and will be given to you and your family. So we meet 100% of financial aid. We are need aware, but we meet 100% of demonstrated need. We do have a few cost calculators online. It usually will say for US students, for the My Intuition one, I would still use it. It's pretty easy. It's only 6 questions, and you can just use it as an international student. It's not perfect, but it'll give you kind of an idea of how much financial aid your family might receive. And then last but not least, the Johnson Scholarship is for 10% of our incoming class every single year, so about 40 to 44 students. It is a merit scholarship, and it's not just based off of test scores. It's not just based off of academics. It's basically, what are you doing as a leader in the community and to give back to society? But we also want you to be a very good student as well. So I would highly encourage you to check that out. It is a very great scholarship. It is full tuition, room, and board. And it also comes with a guaranteed $7,000 to do research, internship, or study abroad anywhere in the world. And you can still apply for need-based aid while you apply for the Johnson Scholarship. So you can do both. And international students have and do win the scholarship as well as US students. So I would definitely go for it. But that is financial aid at Washington and Lee University. All right, I'm gonna toggle back and we can go back to asking more questions. But I know that many of you may have to leave. All right, so let me check the questions here. And if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. All right. Yep. So there's a question here about majors and having to apply for a certain major. You do not need to apply to a specific major. You can just apply to the university. Some students know exactly what they want to study when they come to the university, and some students have no idea. I think with anything, if you are applying without financial aid, there's probably a small chance, or I would say there's probably a greater chance of admission. That's what need aware means. But I would say that Washington and Lee is a very fortunate institution, that our resources are available, that we want all students to be of a pretty similar academic nature who come to the university. So if your grades are not sufficient, it will not matter if your family can afford the education. So I would just kind of point that out. The bigger question is what type of student you are, and what are you interested in, and are you a good fit for the university? Many people who apply to the university, their families can afford the entire education, and they are still not admitted to the university. So that part does not really matter. We do have a transfer program. Students can apply as a transfer student if you have attended a university somewhere in the world, whether in the US or abroad. There's a separate transfer process with a separate transfer application. The transfer application will likely be live in November, so you'll just have to check our website. For any questions specifically about degree programs, I would highly encourage you to check out our website, www.wlu.edu. Well, that is the reason why, there's a question about the SAT and our test centers closing. That is the reason why we are test optional this year, is because we know students are having so many difficulties with SATs, and we want everybody to be safe. So please, 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 please do not think you have to submit an SAT or ACT score this year. This is all for undergraduate study. The university only has a small law school, which you are welcome to reach out to specifically. But there are, this was not about graduate school education. Thank you. Yes, there, within any acceptance letters and any financial aid documents, there's a question about GPA and to study. So all students have to maintain passing GPA if you receive financial aid. We want to make sure that you are doing well at the university and are maintaining progress towards graduation. For the Johnson Scholarship, they have a separate GPA requirement. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I want to say it's a 3.0 or a 3.3 GPA in order to make sure that you maintain your Johnson Scholarship. All right, let me see. We have a question here. Do you need, let me see, are we allowed to work while studying? There is a small work study program, and that's usually part of the financial aid. Each student can be awarded work study of about $2,000 per year, I believe it is. And you can either use that funding to help pay for a part of your education, or you could also use it for pocket money. That is usually in addition to the financial aid that is given at the university. Students can look for additional jobs, but in the US, it is very difficult to find jobs often for international students. So I would not consider that as a solution to paying for your education. At any university, I would point that out too in the US. You should be willing to finance your education in a different way. There's a question here about transcripts. Yes, we do need to have transcripts from the last 4 years of your education at Washington and Lee University. So if your last school that you attended only went for 3 years, then I would encourage you to get at least the last year of the school that you took beforehand. So sometimes it's a junior high school or a middle school. For many students, they might get the very last year of that school and then the 3 years of their high school. Yes, and that is a question there when I said the SAT or ACT, that is not required for this academic year. If you are looking to apply for fall 2022, at this time, it will be required. That might change. I have no idea if it will or will not change. For the admissions process, we do not require international applicants to submit bank statements or any certificate of finances or anything like that. If you want to apply for financial aid, you will need to submit that information, but our admissions counselors will not know the exact amount. It is kind of a yes or no question for us. So either you are applying for financial aid or you are not applying for financial aid. There's a question here about combining merit aid and need-based aid. And yes, absolutely. That is possible for you to do so if the university offers both merit scholarships and need-based scholarships. So I can only really speak to Washington and Lee University at this time because that's obviously the one that I work for. But the way that it works is, so now the Johnson Scholarship is full tuition, room, and meals. And it also comes with a guaranteed $7,000 to do research, internship, or study abroad. Now, if your family needs more than that for, say, books, for transportation costs, for living expenses, things like that, you can also apply for need-based financial aid. And so the scholarship would actually increase to cover those additional things if your family needs it. Additionally, if you apply for the university, you can apply for both the Johnson Scholarship and need-based aid. You might receive the Johnson Scholarship or you might not. If you apply for both, if you do not get the Johnson Scholarship, you could still get the need-based scholarship. And so that way you can still attend the university. On the other end, you might receive the Johnson Scholarship. You're always going to receive the need-based scholarship if you apply to the university, are accepted, and apply for need-based scholarship. That is for any student who is admitted at Washington and Lee University with financial aid. The IB requirements, we love the IB program. You need to have your diploma. We also would say that we're gonna need the last 2 years of your previous education, like IGSCs or any other high school program before the IB program. Yes, for the on-campus accommodation, all of our students live on campus for the first 3 years. So you are guaranteed housing for your first 3 years at Washington and Lee University. In your last year on campus, you're allowed to live off campus if you like. Many students will live in an apartment right near campus, but there have been some students in their last year at the university who have now decided that they want to stay on campus. The housing is very, very nice on campus. I would encourage you to check them out. We have some standard housing dormitories, but we also have some excellent like separate houses that students can have their own room. They share a bathroom, share a kitchen, and you still have somebody who comes in and cleans it for you every week. So they're very, very nice. For the IELTS exam, generally so for the TOEFL exam, we're very selective. So generally, I would say that most students should have around 100 to be very competitive. If you're a little bit below that, it's probably fine, but around that area. Same with the IELTS. Generally, most students are going to have around a 6.5. If you're at a 6.0, but you have some really strong subscores, that's possible too. Just we need students who are proficient in English. There is no application fee for international students to apply for Washington and Lee University. When you submit the common application, you only need to just choose a fee waiver, whichever one you choose. And as an international student, you will be automatically granted a application fee waiver. Just reading through the questions here. How far is a Starbucks from your university? There is a Starbucks in town now. It is at the university that's right next door to ours. So you can get there, but there's a number of coffee shops on our college campus. So it's very easy to find coffee. Just might not be Starbucks. Yep, you can definitely apply after a gap year. Just make sure that you completely document what activities you did during the gap year and also what was the purpose for it. Was it for did you want to have a special program? Did you just not feel ready for college? Were you not successful last year? And then if so, how did you spend that time? You know, there's lots of different reasons why a student might have a gap year. Just tell us about it. Let me see, I already answered the question about the application fee. For the Duolingo test, I'm really sorry. I completely am forgetting. It's going to be whatever the equivalent TOEFL and IELTS score is for Duolingo. You're welcome to Google that on the Duolingo website. I know they have it, and I could do it very quickly, but I would just encourage you to do so. Roughly, we're going to require the equivalent of whatever 100 TOEFL is. So exactly, you know, so just go ahead and do that. We do not have any other campuses in any other countries. One kind of fun point of information is for students who were coming to campus this year because of the pandemic, we actually helped them start at a study abroad partner of ours in Scotland. It was just very difficult for students to get visas for this coming summer. And we wanted to make sure that the incoming first year students had a really cool experience beyond just taking online courses, because that seemed rather dull or boring. So we got all of our students together and they went to Scotland and they met some Washington and Lee alumni who were living there, and they all got to know each other and they're having a fabulous time. I got to see the pictures. They look to be having so much fun. And now they're getting their visas and they will be on campus for this coming spring semester. So we don't have any other campuses in any other countries, but fun fact that some of our first year students actually got to start in Scotland before they come to the US.